true grassroots community organizing looks like. Sometimes we're a little more organized than others. But thank you all for coming and thank you for your flexibility. I am Hannah Willems, and I am a founding member of the Point Community One School District. Okay, so who are we and what are we doing here? What is One Community, One School District? We are a group of parents and other concerned citizens who believe that the children of East Baton Rouge Parish school system are best served by a unified system. We are working to empower parents and other citizens to continue to improve public education in our community. And as I mentioned, we are a true grassroots group. We are started as a group of parents, moms, and a couple of dads of kids in EBR schools. And we found each other back in the spring of last year in response to a proposal to create a new school system in southeast Baton Rouge. And since then, we have formally organized ourselves as a 501c4 organization. Our board members are, if you guys would like to stand up, our president is Belinda Davis, Tania Nyman, who is also celebrating a special birthday tonight, so please wish her a happy birthday later this evening. Leslie Duffley is our secretary. Good evening. I am Hannah Willems, I'm your treasurer. Mary Juno is unable to join us this evening. Laura Fernandez and Todd McCoy, and a special round of applause for Todd McCoy for putting up with all the rest of us. And we have hundreds of members across East Baton Rouge Parish and around the state who've been following this issue. So what have we been doing since last spring? I told you how we got started, but we've been very busy since then. We have, if there has been a gathering discussing education, we have been there. With either district-sponsored forums, educator forums, forums for new programming, expanded magnet programming. One of us has been there. We've met with our state legislators, EBR administrators and school board. We've met with BESI reps. We've been on the phone and on the email. We have been to school events. We have been to civic association meetings, and we have been to VIPS luncheons. We've been to academic distinction fund events. We've been out in the community, staying involved, and we want to tell you more about how to do that yourselves later. At this point, I'm going to hand it over to our president, Belinda Davis. Oh, actually, I'm not. I've told you who we are, and we'd like to know a little bit more about who all of you are and why you're here. So, Tania is going to be my lovely birthday girl assistant, and
Leslie could give me a marker. This would work a lot better.
So, can I have a show of hands who are parents in the EBR school system? Okay, and just quickly shout out of schools. EBR CBPA, okay. Westdale Middle. McKinley Middle, okay. Baton Rouge High. Westdale Middle.
You guys know middle?
Glasgow Middle. Lots of middle and high school parents.
Westdale Elementary.
Okay. Here we go, marker. Yay, marker. Okay, any more?
Buchanan Elementary.
Buchanan, WHAM, BRCBPA, Flame, McKinley Middle, Glasgow Middle, Westdale Middle, so Sherwood Middle, and Baton Rouge High, and Westdale. So a pretty good representation. Who are not parents? Okay. What parents is in the school system? Might I ask? Oh, a grandparent. Okay. Where are your grandchildren? In Baton Rouge Center. Okay. Well, if you could quickly share, if you would like, what brought you here tonight, why you're concerned about education in East Baton Rouge Parish.
I'll put together Baton Rouge education.
I care.
Thank you.
Representative Regina Bauer, the She's always been a supporter of the unified
Yeah, thank you
program.
for coming. Anyone else?
We are transitioning from private school system to public school system. And both products are public schools, and very proud of that fact.
Welcome. We need more parents like that. So we need to recruit.
I'm with the school board, and y'all paid me to come here and say, yes, y'all had attended all of those things. I've been at all of those things, and they've been there.
Yes, yes. Okay, well, thank you all so much for coming and participating. And hopefully y'all will have something to learn from us, and hopefully we will have something to learn from all of you. So now I'll hand it over to our president.
Thank you so much for coming tonight. We really appreciate you guys taking your time out of a busy schedule to come and talk with us about what's going on in the East Baton Rouge Parish school system. So why are we here? Basically, we oppose the creation of the Southeast Community School District for two main reasons. One, we firmly believe that the creation of this school district further decreases socioeconomic and racial diversity inside the East Baton Rouge Parish school system. If you look down here at the bottom, this is U.S. Census data on the residents in the proposed Southeast Community School District, and then what would be left in the East Baton Rouge Parish School District that the Southeast Community District leaves. As you can see, this would be another breakaway school district that is overwhelmingly white. And I would encourage you, if you missed the Louisiana Public Broadcasting, they did an excellent show called The State We're In on the resegregation of East Baton Rouge Parish just this week, which traces how, with each breakaway school district, we are losing more and more diversity, both from a racial standpoint and an economic standpoint here in our public school system. And we think this is a travesty. And in their video, they also interviewed Adam Knapp of the Chamber, where they talked about how there are incredible negative consequences that would come with another desegregation lawsuit here in East Baton Rouge Parish. The businesses don't want to come and work in a district that cannot get this right 60 years after the Supreme Court settled it with Brown versus the Board of Education. And we are very concerned that another breakaway district, particularly one that has no governing structure other than what would be a new school board, would draw the attention of the U.S. Department of Justice and lead us down the track of another desegregation case. And we think this is bad for our parish, and to be honest, as parents, we value the economic and the racial diversity that we have in our school district, and we don't want to see that further compromised. The other reason we are opposed to this breakaway school district is because of the financial consequences that will be borne by the East Baton Rouge Parish School District, which I'm going to talk about in a minute. I'm talking about legacy cost and how those create enormous consequences for us in terms of taking dollars out of our classrooms. So I'll talk about that in just a minute. So what's happening now? Well, we've kind of got Groundhog Day. So we defeated the proposed Southeast Community School District in the last legislative session, but according to their community meeting in January that they held at Woodlawn Baptist, they're coming back and they're trying again. So what we're doing now is gearing up for another long legislative battle where we ask for your help to help fight off this threat to our school district once again. So the proposed Southeast Community School District, these are the schools that are in the proposed area. Just in case you're new to this battle, these are the 10 schools and over 7,000 students that would be carved out of the East Baton Rouge Parish Public School System, and these are their letter grades. So as you can see, they have 3 schools that are struggling and need our help, but they have an A, a B, and several C schools. These are some of our highest performing schools in the East Baton Rouge Parish system. These are good schools, and we don't want to lose these schools or their 7,000 students. And so, and I'd like to point out that if you go to the Local Schools for Local Children website, they haven't updated their grades for these schools. We had multiple schools in this area move up in terms of the grading system in the state, so they've made progress, and the Local Schools for Local Children's group appears to be ignoring that progress. So, the financial lingo. I have learned a lot about the bureaucratic and the legislative and financial accounting jargon that goes with breakaway school districts. So I just want to take a minute to explain a couple of terms to you. And those terms are MFP, which stands for Minimum Foundation Program, and legacy costs. What are those things? Basically, each school district gets a stream of tax dollars that are federal, state, and local tax dollars to run them. And the MFP is the formula that determines how each school district's allotment is fixed, okay? So the legislators have created this formula, and basically each year they vote whether or not they're going to raise it. It hasn't been raised for several years in the state because of the financial crisis that we're in. But that's what the MFP is. What is a legacy cost? A legacy cost are those costs associated with paying for the benefits of our retirees, things like their health care costs, all right? And so legacy costs are important because that amount gets drawn out of our MFP, right? So we get a chunk of money from federal, state, and local sources that we can spend on our kids. And legacy costs come out of that. So when legacy costs go up in East Baton Rouge Parish, that's less money that reaches your child in the classroom. That's why legacy costs are so important. So how does this work? Well, breakaway school districts have been increasing our legacy costs for over a decade, right? They're financially devastating us. And here's how they work. These are made up numbers. I tried to use East Baton Rouge Parish budget data, but their budgets online don't go back far enough for me. So these are approximations. These are not unrealistic numbers, all right? But I don't want you to think that they actually represent the true financial numbers. But this is to illustrate how these legacy costs pile up for us, all right? If you have a parish district, so you think of it as the mother district, all right, with a student population of 60,000 that has $40 million a year that's spent in legacy costs. That's a reasonable number for what's being spent on retiree benefits. All right, that $40 million is spread across 60,000 students, which means about $667 is coming out of the MFP to pay for those retirees' costs. All right, so what happens when a breakaway school district happens? Well, breakaway school district 1 might pull 10,000 students out of the district. If they don't account for their legacy costs, what happens is the home district, their share of the legacy cost rises. In this situation, losing 10,000 students without accounting for it boosts the legacy cost up to 800. If you have another breakaway district that comes along, then all of a sudden you're at $1,000. It's $1,000 that's not being spent on our students. This is exactly what Zachary, Central, and Baker did to the East Baton Rouge Parish School District when they broke away, and it is exactly what Local Schools for Local Children thought they were going to get away with last legislative session. When they introduced their legislation, there was absolutely no accounting for legacy costs. That bill made it out of the Senate without addressing it at all. Senator Broom attempted to do this in an amendment that would have taken care of our legacy costs on a per pupil basis, and it was flatly rejected in the Senate. All right? It was not until they were almost defeated in the House that they made what we would consider a very paltry attempt to address these legacy costs with a trust fund of $2.5 million when conservative estimates are 5 to 6 million in the first year alone. And there's ambiguous legal language in there about how the Department of Education is going to figure out what they really owe us, and they'll take care of that down the road. And my contention to you is that is not enough. Our children deserve certainty in regard to their finances and what our kids are going to have to bear. We are tired of having the kids of East Baton Rouge Parish bear all of these costs for all of these independent school districts that get to go and pour more money into their classrooms because we're paying for their retirees' costs. All right? And so this matters, these legacy costs matters because our teachers and our bus drivers that helped get those kids to school in these breakaway districts and educated them, they now bear no responsibility for any of their retirement benefits. How is that fair? Right? And $2.5 million, you might hear, oh, well, the breakaway school district, at least they're trying. Trying is not enough, right? This has got to stop. So these legacy costs have to be addressed. All right? In this current plan, their current plan is to reintroduce the legislation that they were left with at the end of the last session. That's what they said in their January meeting, the same legislation with the amendment. All right, the Richardson and Heidelberg report, which was commissioned by the Baton Rouge Area Chamber of Commerce and the Baton Rouge Area Foundation, says that the mechanism by which legacy costs are calculated right, produces a number. And there are a variety of mechanisms for producing those numbers, and it creates a range from 42 million to 230 million, right, over the course of a decade, right, or more. And I don't want to leave that in the hands of the Louisiana Department of Education. That is too much of an unknown. If they're going to do this, the mechanism for calculating our legacy costs needs to be determined so that you as parents can make an informed decision about if we have to vote on this as a district, what you want to do. And our legislators, for crying out loud, should want this kind of information. They should want to know what they're doing to the East Baton Rouge Parish public school system. And to be honest, right, the amendment, right, I'm not a lawyer, all right, but the amendment has language that is ambiguous at best, and it also says, look, we're going to take care of, if we calculate these legacy costs, we're going to take care of people who retire prior to, or are already retired prior to the creation of this district. So let me get this straight. Cedar Crest Southmore is in the proposed district. You can have a teacher who has taught 25 years at Cedar Crest Southmore, where I went to elementary school. If the breakaway district occurs and she decides to stay with East Baton Rouge Parish and she teaches just 2 more years and then retires, we still are responsible for her entire retirement cost. Even though for 25 years she served the children that are now in the Southeast Community School District. We cannot do this to our kids. We cannot, if they're going to do this, do it the right way. Maybe that makes it more complicated, but that's the way it's got to be if we're going to protect the interest of the students who are going to be left behind in the East Baton Rouge Parish school system, which we hope we don't even have to get this far. We hope that, once again, we're going to have your support as parents in the community on the Capitol grounds this spring, fighting this district off again. Because just like it was bad for the East Baton Rouge Parish kids last year, it's still bad for them this year. All right. Now, don't be persuaded by this idea that our MFP is going up. They like to bandy about this idea that, well, Baton Rouge, the East Baton Rouge Parish School System, if we leave, they're actually going to be better off financially. That is not true. All right, so even if they take away our legacy cost, is our MFP funding going to go up? Yes, by about $240 or so that's projected. But why is that? Why is our MFP going to go up? Because they are further concentrating the rate of poverty in East Baton Rouge Parish schools. Basically, we are going to increase the concentration of kids that are living in poverty in our schools. And the legislature knows that that matters. Researchers know that that matters, because kids who are living in poverty need more money to overcome their barriers to educational attainment. This is not lanyard money that East Baton Rouge Parish just go throw parties with, right? We get that money because of the negative consequences that the Southeast Community School District is pushing on us, all right? So this is not, free money that EBR is getting. This is because they know that they're making the job of the East Baton Rouge Parish School District even harder, right? And that we're having to spend even more money to educate the children and to give them the education that they so richly deserve here in our district. All right? So, knowledge is power, but is this enough? All right? This is the plan that the Southeast Community School District presented for their schools should they leave. It is a very ambitious plan, lots of specialized programs. All right, this is what it is to the best of our knowledge. They said they were going to post this on their webpage, and they have not, so these are our notes that we took, okay? This is a lot, all right? And this kind of program is really, really expensive, all right? And so I'd like to challenge you to do a couple things. So this is, first of all, I'd ask you to tell local schools for local children to put this on their website like they said, so we can make sure that our notes are correct. But we had several people taking notes. We're pretty sure that this is what they said. But if you're a parent living in the district, you need to know this, right? You need to know what they're proposing and how they're going to make it work. But this still, right, this is not a curriculum like they say it is. This is just areas of specialty that they're planning at every school. And there's still really important questions that are not being answered yet. All right, so one of them is the fact that if you noticed on that last page, they're creating grade level school districts. They're breaking up elementary schools into pre-K to 3rd grade and then 4th to 5th, you know, I might have the breakup wrong, but they're creating these schools that are going to be more like Zachary, who has a kindergarten, 1st grade, and 2nd grade, say, in one school, and then you go to a different school for 3rd, 4th, and 5th. One thing we think parents in that community need to ask is, why are you doing this? Because when we went to the Woodlawn Family Forum held by Superintendent Taylor, right, with all 5 of our executive board members were there, 7 of us. We were there listening to the parents who lived in that area. And Superintendent Taylor came to them with a plan for their schools that involved choice, that was going to allow their students to float among their elementary schools and go to the school of their choice. And those parents said, no, no, no. We want our traditional neighborhood schools. And Superintendent Taylor listened to them, and he scrapped his plan, and he went back to the traditional neighborhood school model that those parents wanted. This is not it. So why, if you're living in that area, you need to be asking Norman Browning, why this, when parents have repeatedly said that they want neighborhood schools, and that's not what their proposed plan produces. The second thing that you need to ask is how they're going to deal with exceptional students. When asked about whether or not there was going to be standalone or pull-out gifted and talented, they said, we don't know, we'll do what is legally required. When asked about how they're going to deal with students with disabilities, we will do what is legally required by the law. That is not enough. Parents need to be able to know, are there going to be reading specialists at their school? Is there going to be a nurse at this school? What is their GT program going to look like? We need information before we as parents can vote, and our legislators should want more information before they vote. They need to produce more answers. And then the other thing that people need to ask is, how in the world are they going to pay for all of those specialized programs that's in their plan? Because they have been telling residents of the Southeast that they are not going to raise their taxes. It's on their website, it's on their Facebook, they repeatedly say it over and over, we're not raising your taxes. Well, I'll tell you something, that plan is way more ambitious than anything Zachary and Central have to offer, and let's take a look at their property taxes that go to schools. All right, the East Baton Rouge Parish, it's 43.45 mils, Zachary 7.9, Central 60, right? Baker 43, right? And Baker's the only one of those districts that's still struggling, right? Primarily financially, okay? And why is this an issue? These small school districts create what are called economies of scale. It addresses this. Small school districts are expensive to run, right? And they cannot afford to offer specialized programs because of their size. All right, so even Zachary isn't offering what they say they're going to offer. How are they possibly going to do all of that and not raise property taxes and not leave the East Baton Rouge Parish school system footing the bill for their legacy costs? Right? This math does not compute. Right? And so if you live in that district, right, proposed district, you should call and ask, especially if you're a small business owner or a business owner, and ask to see their budget where they pay for all of these things on the tax dollars that they would have coming in, because they've got projections, they know what their tax base would look like, and ask them to show you the money. All right? Where is that money coming from? So we'd encourage you, right, what we need still are some of the same things that we needed last legislative session. We need more information, right? And we need the people of East Baton Rouge Parish to pay attention. Even if you don't live in the Southeast Community School District, this affects you. Don't think that just because you're not in the pullout zone, the education of your children will not suffer if this breakaway school district happens. There'll be less money for what is left behind in the East Baton Rouge Parish school system. There'll be less diversity from both a socioeconomic perspective as a racial perspective. Right? And these are the things that we need to be paying attention to as a community. We are one community. Our name actually means something, right? Woodlawn, you're a resident of Baton Rouge, right? And we are in this together, right? We are a much bigger force And we do a much better job when we as a community come together and pursue excellence in education together. So this might be enough about the Southeast Community School District because we actually do a lot more. We've been doing a ton of stuff about education around East Baton Rouge Parish besides focusing on this upcoming legislative fight. And so Tania is going to talk to you a little bit about some of that.
Hi, I'm Tania Nyman, and I just wanted to add that actually it's not just if you don't live in the southeast area and you live in East Baton Rouge Parish schools, it certainly affects you. It also affects you even if you live outside of the whole Baton Rouge area. Wherever you live in the state, allowing a neighborhood to create its own independent school district without being incorporated sets the precedent for this to happen anywhere in the state of Louisiana. And if if other areas get wind of that, they will certainly begin to recognize the ways in which they can just carve their district out around the areas that are struggling with their schools in order to save themselves a few tax dollars. And so I think it's a big issue. We need to talk about how do we want our schools organized? Who do we want deciding how a school district should be organized? How do we want them paid for? And how do we distribute those costs fairly? Yes?
I also wanted to add, you talked about school size. We've also been told that because of the number of students that live in the pull-out section, that attend school in our schools of choice, if we take those students out of those schools of choice, that's going to reduce, like, your gifted students and things like that. It affects those programs that remain, and they may not be able to continue those programs in the future.
Yeah, just the threat that it poses to the programs in East Baton Rouge Parish. One thing when we started looking at stuff, there was so much emphasis on the district performance score last year. That was what was bandied about by the Southeast proponents, was that, Zachary and Central pulled out, and look how phenomenally well they're doing since then. And so we started looking at, okay, what does it mean, these school performance scores? Of course, because they didn't mention Baker ever so often. So here's a little district comparison for you. The enrollment in Zachary, they have 5,235 students. They have 6 schools. 48% of their students are free and reduced lunch. They have a district's performance score of A. Central has a little over 4,000, 5 schools, 51.5% free and reduced lunch, school performance A. East Baton Rouge, 42,000 plus students. We have 85 schools, 80% of our students qualify for free and reduced lunch. You got to see. So I went looking around today, trying to find like another district I could have a comparison to, and the closest one I could come to was Jefferson. It's the only one that had kind of the same numbers of free and reduced lunch and the same number of students in schools, and they also got a C. And so you think, well, maybe it's just a little bit of a fluke. But if you break it out, actually you'll notice that across Louisiana, 7 districts, received an A. In those 7 districts, the one with the lowest percentage was at 42.8%, and the highest percentage of free reduced lunch children in their program was 66.3%. You'll notice I put a little asterisk, because that 66.3%, that's the highest, or the next highest is 57.4, and the 66.3 belongs to the Orleans Parish School Board, which does not include the Recovery School District of New Orleans. They have 18 schools. 6 are run directly by the Orleans Parish School Board. 12 are charter schools, many of which have selective application processes. Interviews, essays, required parent meetings. One of them has all that just to get your child's name in the lottery. So clearly what happens is those kids, anybody that doesn't get into those schools, end up in the RSD, and the RSD has a D. And they certainly have more schools with a higher percentage of free and reduced lunch. One of the schools, unfortunately, they didn't have that data calculated. They just had it all by schools, and so I just kind of scanned through. And one of the schools had 99.7% of the children run free and reduced lunch.
I got a question. You mentioned what Central's score is now. It's an A. What was their score 5 years ago before they pulled out?
Whose?
Central.
The equivalent
The
of an
schools in Central?
What were they before they pulled out?
So,
Yeah, I was just gonna say, the first year they pulled out, they were #1 in the state, and their score has consistently been in accordance with their free lunch.
What was it before they pulled out?
They didn't have letter grades, is what I'm saying, but they were the highest performing within the district. If you took their students, the last year they were in EBR, if you took their students and their scores, they would have been the highest performing district in the state of Louisiana.
I thought Zachary was above them.
Oh, you were talking, I'm sorry, I was thinking Zachary.
I'm talking Central.
Oh.
What was Central before they pulled out?
Central was in the same ranking. They didn't have a grade because we didn't have letter grades, but their scores were the highest performing within the district
Again, I
for the
thought-
students
I
within
thought
Central.
Zachary was the highest in the area.
But Zachary was already separated out, is what I'm saying. Within EBR, when Central was part of EBR, they had, for the students living in that area, the Chamber of Commerce had already pulled their data and said they would be, at that time, if you took out the kids who were attending from the rest of the parish,
Right.
they would have been the highest performing within the EBR system.
All right, that's what I need to know.
Yeah.
all right, so if you move down, we have the A, the performance scores, 42.8 to 66.3%, 57.4%, depending on how you want to calculate it. A B, there's 16, 44 to 73% districts, 60 to 92%. D, 10 of them, 78 to 93%. And the F, there's 2, and it's 94.9% because I couldn't find the data on the Recovery School District of Louisiana, which is the one other F in the district. The other school district is St. Helena. So I think if you just look at the numbers, you can see that there's clearly a correlation between the concentration of poverty within a school district and the performance score it receives. I mean, I wouldn't think most people would dispute that poverty certainly creates some barriers for children. It's not to say that kids living in poverty can't learn, but certainly there are greater obstacles and they need greater support. And so, what do these scores tell us? If you look at this chart, it just tells us where there are concentrations of poverty. So, we know this. The Department of Education knows this, apparently, because they take it into consideration when they're evaluating their teachers. Here are some of the things that are factored into the value-added method. Prior achievement on state assessments, gifted status, Section 504 status, which is a special education, it's an independent education plan. Free lunch status, reduced lunch status, student attendance, disability, and discipline record. They take all of those into consideration in evaluating a teacher. So you would think they would also take all of that into evaluation when they are going to rate our schools. And yet, look at what they use. The district performance scores are a roll-up of a school district's individual student scores on the LEAP, I-LEAP, and graduation exit exam, as well as attendance and dropout rates and graduation outcomes. District performance scores are calculated with the same formula as school performance scores, but use 1 year of data as if the district is one large school. Now, some of this is going to change because they're moving to the end course and Common Core and things like that instead of the I-LEAP. But it's the same idea. It's based on standardized testing primarily. And so this is what they're going to use this year on high school, for the schools, right? I-LEAP and LEAP scores 100% for elementary schools. All testing. That's what's going to deem whether a school is doing well. Middle school, 95% test scores, 5% dropout rate. High school, 25% is end of course test. 25% is the ACT scores. 25% is the graduation rate and then the graduation index. So you can see there's a heavy emphasis on those test scores. And if you look at the ACT in particular, which is that college entrance exam, the other tricky, this is just another, to show you some more points, how they figure it out. The other thing about that ACT score is that if the student earns less than 18 points, the school gets a 0. What? The school gets a 0. The argument is that all of our children should be ready for college, and if they're not ready for college, then that school has failed and should not receive any credit. That's the argument. I'm not embracing it.
Does that include students with disabilities?
Yes.
Every student.
I thought a few years ago, the policy was not everybody has to go to college, so let's get them.
And that's the tricky thing, isn't it? Because that's what it says. It says college or career readiness. Except suddenly the career readiness has been obscured. And it also ignores the fact that there are colleges that accept children with ACT scores less than 18. I mean, Baton Rouge Community College offers classes that help students prepare and becomes another pathway to a higher education. And I know that it is, and of course we don't get this kind of information from private schools. I actually had a couple of private school friends way back. Y'all know it's my birthday. And you know, and they confessed to having scores less than 18, but I bet their private school wasn't going to advertise that, and they're not going to advertise that, and we'll never know about it. But all of our public schools will be forced to share that information and be penalized for it. Is there any steps to address the reasons why those children might not be reaching that level?
And there's a real disconnect, because what the state wants is career readiness is one thing, and there's a focus on the jobs that are available in our area that we can't fill with qualified students. But work keys, another test that is a standardized test that could be used for something similar to ACT. Work keys is not even considered. ACT is the only, and 25%, that's a lot.
It's
to
a
put
lot.
on that test.
Yeah, and especially, well, 25%, you know, you get less than an 18, that's, you're down to the C range, and what happens if the school gets a C or the district gets a C?
For work keys. Really well on work keys,
Which is why I want to go to lunch with you, Barbara. Come talk to me about what some alternatives can be, because that's the thing. We're proposing, we'd really like to have people get involved with investigating school performance scores, because clearly, if the school performance scores do not seem to be inherently evaluating schools in a meaningful way. If all they're doing is showing us where children who live in poverty go to school, and then using that to take them over, it's not exactly an effective system if we really want to improve educational outcomes. All it's going to do is allow for schools to be taken over, because that's the consequences. First, the kids get school choice, but then they become eligible for the Recovery School District. And remember, Recovery School District New Orleans is a D, Recovery School District Louisiana is an F, the lowest F in the state. So it's not like the schools improve necessarily once they get taken over by the Recovery School District. So that's one thing on your little card. I think hopefully everybody got a card. If you're interested in looking at these issues and learning about them, investigating them, and then identifying maybe some proposals we can bring to receptive representatives or senators who might be willing to take it on as a good cause.
Another consequence for the failing grades is the vouchers also.
That's right.
And I think that's an important thing to take into consideration. And what's interesting about the vouchers, which goes back to sort of the disconnect, is the students who take the vouchers may be in a D school, but they may be an A+ student. They may be outperforming everyone at the school. So it's not how the student is performing, it's how the school is performing. And the school might be doing a great job with that child. But it is a consequence of the D or F grade.
And then the irony is
that then you have the vouchers.
and an additional irony, then they go to a private school that is not required to record the grades, right?
And they call it ICT scores.
Right. So this is a serious issue, and we bring it up now in connection to the breakaway school district because, of course, if the threat is that areas are going to be targeted for state takeover because the school performance scores aren't really doing an adequate job of evaluating schools and their methods, then more people are going to be inclined to think about, well, let me just build my little wall. And so we need to address the core root of the problem in addition to making sure that we prevent other assaults on our public education system. And in the interest of time, I cut out all the part where I compared EBR's accomplishments and awards to Zachary and Central, but please know, we know the school districts aren't the same size, but I mean, East Baton Rouge has so many award-winning schools, and I did look at 2 other schools. Jefferson Parish, since it was comparable, they had no awards, none. And in St. Bernard Parish, I looked at as well. It was a much smaller school district. It only had 5,000 students, but it had a comparable percentage of children in free and reduced lunch. And they had 2 high poverty, high performing school awards, and East Baton Rouge Parish has 3 of those. And so, still outperforming even when you try to get comparing apples to apples instead of apples to oranges. And so I just wanted to bring that up. So what are we going to do? So we're going to, Hannah, did you want to do this?
I'm here.
You want to take this over? Okay. All right, so we're going to point out the enormous gains made by East Baton Rouge Parish School System over the past several years. Of the 17 districts with free and reduced lunch rates of 80% or higher, we are only one of only 7 with a grade C grade or better. Our score increases have been some of the largest in the state. We're going to educate legislators across the state about the negative ramifications of breaking up school districts. This is so important because really legislators, last year when we were calling our representatives and emailing, and we need to do it again, that really made a difference. A lot of the legislators right now, they're lining up their votes already, and there's so many of them. Our area's fate is in the hands of people who live way off from here, and they don't have a vested interest in us, and they might be able to get something for their district by trading that vote, and all that type of stuff goes on. So it's really important that we not only make sure that we share this with our friends, that we be prepared to once again send all those emails and make all those phone calls and write all those letters, but that you will also start phoning up all your friends across the state and telling them to call. Okay, and then we're going to empower the process to participate in the legislative process. Okay, empower parents, excuse me. We can go on. Educate your neighbors and friends. We have a website we're launching. There will be flyers available also that you can hand out. You can download and hand out. We want you to start emailing your senator, representative, and Bessie rep tomorrow, and continue to do it periodically. They have
If you don't know who they are, we can help you figure it out.
Right, and we have a list, and we have some computers so we can find your district on your way out the door. Then we want you to sign up for our newsletters. Is there another page? No? That's it? We want you to sign those cards, and then we haven't written a petition yet because we're waiting to find out the bill numbers when they file them. And last year, I just can't impress upon you enough how important it was to sign that petition. The signatures themselves, weren't the only key. The real key was the fact that that I could then send out notifications to the people who cared about this issue and let them know when and what they could do to make their voices be heard. And so if you sign the petition, then you'll be on the list to get those notifications. So please, we'll send out that petition just like we sent out this notice, and so you can please sign it, and don't hesitate to do so, and share it with your friends. All right, what else?
Does anyone have any questions?
You might ask Ted, since he's the representative.
Ted, want to say a few words?
Good evening. Thank you, Barbara, for throwing me on the hot spot. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Ted James. I'm a state representative here in Baton Rouge. I represent District 101. I had the opportunity to meet these ladies last year, one Friday afternoon, and we had a long conversation about this bill. And first of all, I'm a product of this school system. I think that's most important. I went to South Boulevard, McKinley Middle, and I graduated from McKinley High. And I just believe in my soul that I have a duty to protect this district. And I knew that this legislation, the heart and the soul behind the legislation is horrible. We don't have to talk about that, but I knew that it was something that would negatively impact the citizens of East Baton Rouge Parish and the students and the parents. So it was a blessing for me to meet these ladies and a couple gentlemen that were there. But they really took this issue. And I'll tell you, a lot of times people don't understand the importance of civic engagement at the Capitol. I can go there until I'm blue in the face. She talked about the petition, I held it up when I talked in opposition of this bill, and several of my colleagues wanted to see the names. They wanted to see, because one side said that everybody in the parish wanted this. And when they saw that they had over 900 names opposed to this district, that changed minds for some people. not the things that we said. And I'm here, Rep. Barrow, her assistant, is here, Rep. Smith, she couldn't be here. We are just as focused as we were last year to oppose this bill. We've already started to talk to the members who were opposed to it last year to make sure that they're still on board. EBR, they've made tremendous gains, and my colleagues are listening to those things. When we talk about the MFP, that voucher, unconstitutional voucher program that was passed, it's negatively impacting districts all across the state, not just EBR. If this happens, it's gonna hurt them again. So all of the things that they heard last year, we're hitting them with the facts, and that's what I really enjoy about the presentation. The numbers, all of you guys, you need to become familiar with the terminology, become familiar with the facts, and have a story and speak from one unified voice, because if this bill is filed again, it's gonna take that same effort to defeat it. Let me, just a bit of education. The bill has, it will come in two parts. There's one bill that's enabling legislation and only requires a majority of 53 votes to pass. That passed last year. But the key is the constitutional amendment. That's a 70-vote bill. We don't have a statewide election this year, and we won't have one until next year. I'm hearing, I don't know what's gonna happen with the bill. I will prepare just as the bill, it will be filed. But if the bill is filed, the constitutional amendment, it can't be voted on until next year anyway. So that, I think that buys us some time. I know that a lot of my colleagues had a tough time voting on this last year. There was a lot of pressure coming from the proponents. When we talk about reaching out to legislators across the state, if you have a cousin, if you know somebody that owns a business in one of these other districts, call them, because they will be negatively impacted. And legislators, listen, you don't have to email me tomorrow. I'm already on board, so you don't have to email me. I'm already on board, and I know what side of the issue. But for some of my colleagues and Belinda, they know, because I'm giving them a list of folks who needs to be contacted. And I'll continue to do that if and when the bill is filed. But I am really, really impressed by what has become of that meeting that Friday. You guys have really taken this issue and made it your baby, and now you're a full-fledged organization. You had tremendous gains. They spent their entire spring break at the Capitol. Capped out, their children were there, they brought lunch, they pulled members out of the bathroom, they grabbed folks, and really, really worked to defeat that bill. And that's what we're gonna need, and continue to tell the story of EBR. I see former President Fireberg almost every night, because we're at different events in regards to education, because we're very, very passionate about this, and this will definitely hurt our parish. This is a story that we need to continue to tell. Whatever I can do, we tweet, text, we talk on the phone. They know how to reach me at any time we go to lunch. So whatever you guys need, myself along with a lot of my colleagues here, Rep. Barrow, Rep. Patricia Haynes-Smith, Honorary Rep. Senator Broome, Senator Dorsey, we're here to help you guys, and we are working just as hard to make sure that our colleagues understand the negative implications, not only on EBR, but across the state as well. If you guys have any questions, I'm happy to answer a couple.
Just thank you.
Thank you.
As a very, from a selfish standpoint, I do care about all the children, but I'm in the Southeast District, we're in Westdale Middle, love it, we were at Flame before that, and our goal has been Baton Rouge High, and they're taking away that choice from me, and I've just been disgusted by the whole thing, that we have these jewels within East Baton Rouge Parish school system, and that they're gonna try to limit the choice that we had our goal and set on.
I agree, and that was one of my arguments last year. This proposal slaps choice in the face. So the same folks that were arguing for choice in the beginning of the session, you know, they were supporting this, that took choice directly away from some of our parents. I'm filing a couple bills to try to help. We talked about RSD. I'm filing a bill to reverse the parent trigger for parents that are in RSD schools that have been failing. My bill will allow parents 51%, if they petition, they can return that school back to the local district, because I have a school, Lanier Elementary, in my district that the score has continued to plummet since RSD has taken over. So we are definitely looking at legislative remedies to continue to help not only EBR, but the schools across the state.
My only other concern is working with Dr. Taylor to make the Gifted and Magnet programs more available for more parents, more families. I know my husband and I, we're making the transition. We just took the leap. We applied to our magnet program training. We're on a waiting list, but we still took the leap, and we're like, you know what, if we don't get in this year, we'll try next year, and we'll just go to a public school. So we made that choice. But the schools we've attended, the private schools we've attended, there are so many families who want to make that jump but the registration periods don't line up, or they're not really open and accessible to so many parents who apply and they either get on waiting lists or it's not accessible for them. And so just working with Dr. Taylor and making these programs more accessible so more families are vested in the system.
Yeah, and I agree, and that's one, and I know that the school system, they've hired someone, a good friend of mine, Susan Nelson, was helping to continue to tell the story of EBR. You know, the school board members here, Dr. Taylor has been more than willing to sit down and help with parents, but that's what we need to do. Your story needs to be told, and we need to continue to tell the story to empower parents and let them know that we have a school system that no, we're not where we need to be, but we're working extremely hard. That C was not a C last year. And when we talk about letter grades, those letter grades by Bessie, those things were changed for a reason. They were changed to privatize education. And parents, you need to know it.
Sure.
You know, this is not something that happened overnight. This was a strategic plan to privatize and take our schools for folks to go and make money off the back of our children. Thank you, guys.
I just wanted to thank everybody for coming, and I wanted to thank like Terry Purcell and Laura and who else has helped us so much. Christine, where? Christine. Hey! So there's a lot of people more than us that worked hard down at the Capitol last year, and we're just so thankful. And they helped us out in the meeting tonight too. So it is certainly a group effort. Anything else before we go?
I just encourage you to pay attention to our Facebook page and watch for updates for us about what we'll be doing next, our next meetings. We're probably going to try to organize legislative meetings with legislators that we know voted for this pull-out district last year. So if you live in somebody's district like Eric Conte, for instance, we'll be organizing a group to go and sit with him to talk with him about why we're opposed to this district. And so I know lots of people might be intimidated to go and talk with their legislator. So what we're going to do is give you the opportunity to go with us. All right, so you can watch our Facebook page and our web page for those kinds of opportunities. And also fill out one of our cards if you have not already, so that we can know who you are and how we can get in contact with you as well. And we greatly appreciate you coming, and look forward to seeing you at the Capitol this year. Thank you.